match statements are gorgeous. Like, just the best thing in the planet. Enums, Jesus Christ. Enums, please write on the chat if you are using enums. I'm using enums all the time. Like, literally all the time. Like, on Laravel CloudFront at the moment, every single table has either statues or type. So I'm using always enums for everything. Yeah, property promotion is just so good, man. It was so annoying. Have to literally just type that stuff all the time.
Every time I make a video on PHP, which is basically all the videos I make, I get the exact same comment. PHP is dead. PHP.
Okay, I'm gonna start already here reacting to this because most of the people I have seen, people, making these comments comes from people who haven't seen the language from 10 years already. So these people saying that PHP is dead or PHP is bad or the ecosystem is bad, the only reason why they are saying this, it's because they haven't tried the language in the last 10, 15 years. Because realistically, the PHP now in 2025 is an awesome language. Honestly, if you are jumping into the programming world, PHP is an awesome language. You have things like Laravel, who are super powerful. You have PHP Stand, which is the equivalent of TypeScript. You have Past for testing, which is the equivalent of Jest, for example. You have Composer, which is probably the best package management in the world. So, these comments right here come from people who haven't tried PHP in the last 10 years, okay? And I'm pretty confident about it. And now we are getting exactly transcode. Now we are getting native PHP, which is literally mobile development, just like React Native for your mobile phones, which is insane.
Sucks all the time, every time. And most of the people that think PHP is dead haven't looked at PHP since like 2012, which is before 5.4 came out. And listen, things were a lot.
I literally just said this. So fun.
Different in 2012. I had just graduated college with a degree in accounting for some.
Wait, what? That was Aaron Francis? I had no idea he had the hair like this. That's crazy. That's insane.
A degree in accounting for some reason.
PHP was built in PHP, but also like there is a bunch of websites that you use today that are still built with PHP. Honestly, a bunch of Facebook, it's still PHP behind the scenes. You know what I mean? I think at some point they basically forked the language, but they probably made a mistake because PHP today is better than Hack. You know what I mean? In terms of features and more. Yeah, Slack is in PHP as well. So
types. So I'm going to show you all the different types you can do at the end. Let's take a look at these changes. Going all the way back to 2012 for this one, PHP 5.4 included traits. So instead of writing the same method body over and over.
I don't know what you guys think. I'm not a big fan of traits. I think traits are a confusing term or a confusing technical thing, basically. I very rarely use traits, only when I really have, but I rarely use traits in my code at the moment. Do you guys use traits, or it's something that you typically avoid because you think they are confusing for some reason? Because if I have something like add comment, I would probably encapsulate that within an action, for example. You know what I mean? So I would have something like create comment as an action, and I would potentially inject that action on my model, for example. So it's like, for me, it's about replacing traits with dependency injection, which typically solves all of the problems. So traits is like, I don't know, I feel it's a very specific use.
Or instead of abusing inheritance, we now have composition, so you can have traits and include those in every class, favoring composition over inheritance. Short array syntax. Imagine.
Just by the way, having traits is still 1,000 times better than using inheritance. On this, I do agree with Aaron Francis. Inheritance is, unless you are a framework author or whatever, is almost a bad solution for a problem, okay? Literally, just extending a class, it's, I don't think, like on Laravel Cloud, we don't extend a single class once. Only the classes from the framework. Every single time, we don't use inheritance, ever. We always use literally just actions and dependency injection all the time to reuse code, basically. Cloud has a bunch of actions, dozens of dozens at the moment.
Writing out the word array like a caveman when you can just use square brackets. Short array syntax allows you to use square brackets. Thank you very much. We now have array destructuring. It used to be that you would have to assign an array to a temporary variable and then reference those elements by index if you wanted to assign them to other variables. Now, you can just use array destructuring and directly assign.
This is still something I don't see a lot, okay? I don't see a lot of people using this syntax, but it's pretty cool. I use and abuse of stuff like this.
The variables from the array. We have first class variadic functions, so you can pass as many arguments to a function as you want using this ... syntax. Speaking of ... syntax, you can use that same syntax to spread or splat an array into an argument list for a function call.
I had no idea that just literally doing something like this is called splat an array.
List for a function call. You can use that same syntax to spread or splat an array into another array. So if you want to take all the items from one array and put it into a second array, you can do that with this spread operator. We now have generators if you want to do something memory intensive, but in a memory efficient.
Very rarely I use this. I don't know if you guys know the use case for this. I do know the use case for this, but typically on web applications, it's very rare that I refer to something like only if I have to. But typically, even if I have to, Laravel Collections offers me some helpers which will do this behind the scenes.
Bothered to make a new file who
Okay, this is like insanely rare. By the way, for things like Laravel Vault or past PHP, I have used anonymous functions. On the web development, is insanely rare that I use anonymous functions. Does any of you have used anonymous functions on real world web applications? I don't. Personally, I don't. Yes, still on the topic of yields, after each line, the memory is cleared because you don't need the previous line anymore. Never, right? Yeah. Anonymous functions, if you don't know what is anonymous classes, by the way? I meant anonymous classes, not anonymous functions. Anonymous classes is this possibility of creating a new class without actually having, a name for the class, for example. That's why they're calling anonymous. Small helpers, yeah, on testing, I may actually have used it. But besides that, not really.
That's the time.
In migrations, that's a good point. Laravel actually uses migration. Here we go. Here we have actually anonymous class. And there is a reason for it. Actually, doesn't make any sense to have a name for this class. So there is actually a reason for this.
You can create an anonymous class. An anonymous class can implement an interface just like every other class. And so this is a great use case for when you need one stupid little implementation, but you don't want to make a full class for it. This is a big one. I need you to pay very, very close attention. We now have trailing commas in function call.
Never use this compact function, okay? Please write on the chat, Roger that. Okay? Because never use the compact function. And I don't know why the AI actually, when I'm vibe coding, recommends me to use the compact function, because it's a weird and magic function. Okay? So write on the chat, Roger that, please. Yeah, mainly it's bad for PHP stan, but it's also way magical for my taste.
So look very closely at email. Look at the very end of the word email and watch what's about to happen. Amazing! We now have trailing commas in method calls, PHP rules.
For some reason, I don't know what you guys think, I kind of wish that this trailing comma was just required, basically. Which is the case on Go. We have seen yesterday on Go, the trailing comma is actually required. So you need to actually use the trailing comma every single time. And I actually use that. I like to use the trailing comma at the end. I appreciate you guys saying Roger that all the time.
Method calls, PHP rule. This one's for all my JavaScript friends. I know you love your arrow functions. Well, look out, friends. We've got arrow functions too. Ours, honestly.
Okay, the next step of array maps and not array maps, but short closures would be have multi-line short closures. It's like, yeah, exactly, like JavaScript, basically. But every language, like every single language on the planet has this right. Every single language on the planet have this syntax. So it's not like it's something that only PHP is planning on doing. Like literally every single language on the planet have multi-line short closure. Every single except PHP. Still yet to understand. Well, I don't know about Cobalt. I don't use that language.
Function, but hey, we work with what we've got. We have short closures or arrow function. PHP 7 brought us the null coalescing operator, so we can say the username is equal to the username unless the username is null, in which case we'll go with guest. So we have this nice, neat null coalescing operator. But we also have the null coalescing assignment operator, which can shorthand all of that and say, if the user...
By the way, a lot of people don't know that this exists, okay? And let's do a test. How many of you knew that this exists? This specific syntax right here. How many of you? Oh, some of you actually know this syntax? Interesting. Oh, okay, apologize. It's my bad. I thought people were not using this because I haven't seen code like this. It's very rare that I actually see code like this. That's why I just, thought that you guys were not using it. I see that we have a few people that don't know the syntax. So I thought that, people didn't know this syntax. But well, apparently a bunch of you know.
Name is set to guess. Speaking of nulls, we used to have to do something like this. We would pull the birthday off of the user, and then before we were allowed to call a method on birthday, we would check to see if birthday exists, because you don't want to call a method on null. But now we have the null chaining operator, and we can just say if birthday is not null, call the format function on it. If it is null, just stop right there. We have named arguments now. It used to be that if you wanted to skip over an optional argument, you had to leave a null in the argument, but now we can just name our arguments and pass them in any order that we want. PHP has attributes now, which in other languages are probably called annotations, but you can add an annotation to a class.
I'm not yet convinced of attributes in PHP, so I don't use them a lot. I don't know, for some reason, even if sometimes Laravel allows me to use attributes to use certain features, I still don't use them. So it's very rare that I use attributes. I don't have, for example, an attribute on the Laravel Cloud source code at the moment. Not even a single one. So we don't use attributes at all. They feel weird to me, exactly. But a lot of people love attributes. Like, I do understand that attributes are actually pretty cool. And a lot of people love attributes, and I do respect that, okay? I do respect that a lot of people love attributes today.
Method or an argument or a property. You can add an annotation to almost anything and control a little bit of behavior that way. Keep this in mind. We're going to look at this again in a sec. This one is just a huge, massive improvement. It used to be when you were catching an exception, you had to have a variable for that exception, even if you weren't going to use it. Even if you were just simply going to return false, you had to have that little E in there. Now, look at this. Watch this. Watch that E. Amazing. No longer needed.
Yeah,
if that's not reason enough to switch to PHP, I don't know.
It was so annoying to literally have to declare that E all the time. So I'm pretty glad that they've just removed it.
For those attributes that I told you about literally 2 seconds ago, there's an attribute that will mark an argument as sensitive and redact it from all stack traces, so you don't accidentally end up logging something you shouldn't at a language level. Very cool.
Ooh, this is a very important one that a lot of people forget. Literally, you can do something like this, and this will prevent that this password will ever go to the logs or being echoed out on the terminal. This is actually a very good feature of PHP, and a lot of people don't know about this. Sensitive parameter. Write in the chat if you already knew about this feature, because it's actually a very powerful feature and important one.
Look at this switch statement. It's hideous, it's huge, we hate it. What we're doing is we're switching on a status code, and then in the body of every status, we're setting a message variable. There's got to be a better way.
Statement.
There is a better way. We can use the match statement now and assign.
This is probably, in my ad, not a lot of people are using match statements. So I guess we can also just ask this to people. Do you guys are using match statements already? Did you effectively replace every single usage of switch statements with match statements? I did. I'm using match statements now all the time. Is that your case as well? Match is so beautiful. Even I do agree with you. Match statements are gorgeous. Like, just the best thing in the planet. Yeah, match statements became so much more useful than I thought. Like, I'm gonna be honest, I thought, like, when I saw match statements, I thought that they wouldn't actually change my life, and they did. The code becomes so much more simpler. Even if we look at this switch statement just before, just watch the difference between this code in terms of size and the previous one.
There is a better way. We can use the match
1,000 times. Oh, a lot of you already using match statements. That's awesome, man. Awesome to read this. I agree. Is one of the best things. Match statements are one of the best things in PHP. Yeah, that's true.
Statement now and assign the message variable to the result of the match statement. And look, at 200, 300, we can have multiple matches return the same thing. This is a much more compact, much more readable way to write a switch statement that assigns a variable. We've got weak maps now.
I didn't ask you guys, what do you guys think about my haircut? It's a little bit different here. So typically I have a much smoother, change between the bottom and the top. But this time I asked literally like this so we can actually see the difference. So what do you guys think about my haircut? Is it good? Is it, I don't know. What do you guys think? Oh, feels good? Nice. Nice, nice, nice. Thank you, thank you. Feeling a little bit more confident thanks to you all.
PHP has weak maps. You can set an object as a key in a weak map where you can't
Okay.
do that in
Weak maps. I don't ever have used this feature. Does any of you have used weak maps? I know a friend, Freak from Spassy, who is actually using weak maps for this package called it once. But myself, I have never used weak map. Nope. Yeah, it feels like a very niche feature basically. And the fact that someone like me haven't seen yet the need for this feature feels that a little bit awkward, you know, like why we do even have this to begin with. But apparently it's a popular feature in different languages. So I don't know. Yeah, that's crazy, like seeing weak maps in PHP but not seeing multi-line short closures. It's insane, man. It's insane.
and also weak maps are way better for memory because they'll get garbage collected when there's no references to that object.
Okay, this is actually a cool thing. Did you hear Arden Francis? When that object gets cleaned from memory, that weak map doesn't hold any reference to that key anymore, which is very powerful. So that is actually, that is actually a use case for something like this. Still, I'm not.
It now has enums, so you can have an enum class where you delineate
Okay,
the cases inside.
enums, Jesus Christ, enums. Please write on the chat if you are using enums. I'm using enums all the time, like literally all the time. Like on Laravel CloudFront at the moment, every single table has either statues or type. So I'm using always enums for everything. This is like a lovely feature. I absolutely love enums. Thank God. And thank the person who have implemented enums in PHP. Let's clap for the person who have implemented enums in PHP because this is so cool. And did you guys know that you can have methods on enums? This is mind-blowing that you can have methods on enums, which is so powerful. No. I don't define enums on the database. I use strings, basically. Oh, you don't know what is enums? Oh, dude, I'm using enums so much, man. I'm going to tell you an example where I'm using enums literally all the time. So let's assume, for example, on this table user, I have something like a type, okay? Let's assume something like that. I have a type. So if I had something like this, what I'm always doing basically, is that I'm going to go to the enums folder and I create the user type. And this is like, a pattern that I have created that every time you see something like users with a type, there is always, but like always, a user type enum placed under app enums that will answer to this. Okay, and then inside this user type, you would have something like this. You just go here, app enums, and you type enum, and you type user type. You always have something like this, but then you can have even more. You can have things like labels, for example, which is so powerful. You can have something like this, label, and you can use match statements. Oh my god, this is so cool. You can use match statements for something like this. If this is an admin, how would you do this again? A static admin or self-admin, I think? I literally forgot. Yeah, self-admin, then you return like the label you actually want. This is so cool. Why the auto-completion is literally broken? Okay, here we go. You can use something like this, admin user or whatever as a label, for example, and this would be just client potentially, you know what I mean? You can have labels like regular methods. This is so cool, man. Like honestly, enums are so powerful. You can have so many things, man. You can have something like total, it's just so cool. Like honestly, enums are just literally the best thing in the planet. The best thing in the planet at the moment. Just so good. So good. Yeah, match statements in enums, honestly, we are seeing them both right now, and it's pretty much the game changer for PHP. It's funny because before this I was using constants on classes, and it was so annoying. In Symfony, enums are a little bit different. What do you mean? This is like a PHP feature. Why would in Symfony enums be different? I'm curious about that. Carlson, can you elaborate on your question? What do you mean admin value? So you obviously need, if you need like the real value of these enums, so let's go here, for example. If you need the real values of these enums, you would do something like this, right? Let's say you have user, and this would be the type of the user. And then you would have, if you really need the string value, would need something like this, But let's actually do that. Let's type user type equals to user type enum admin, for example. And if you need the actual value, you do this, okay? And this will effectively return admin. as a native type? Oh, that's actually a very good question. Even just asked like, how do you prefer the enum keys? Which is actually a very valid question. And I think like a lot of people today, they still didn't come with a, there is no PSR12 for enum keys. So which raises a question. You guys in the chat, how typically you write the admin case? Would you do it this way? Would you do that this way? Or even lowercase? How you do this? Ooh, what do we have here? What do we have here? Admin, all upper, interesting. Uppercase, title case, all upper, full upper, okay, we don't see lower cases anywhere, which is interesting. Upper cases, interesting. So a bunch of you actually do it this way, like literally just admin. So that would basically mean that I need to do it this way. Interesting. For some reason, really reminds me constantly. Oh, the value I always put uppercase because the value goes to the database, So the real value, like the user type, what ends up on the database is what ends up here on the database column is effectively the value. So I use lowercase always because it feels better, like go to the database and see lowercase everything just feels a little bit more, consistent, I would say. Yeah, value lowercase, right? Can we agree on that, chat? Right on the chat. Can you agree that lowercase values team here? For everything? Okay, cool. I think today enums, they are still people don't use a lot of methods on enums, which is in my opinion one of the most powerful features we can have. What am I doing here? Jesus Christ. People still don't use a lot of methods on enums, which is very, very. So today we have backend enums, but strings, integers. I don't think we have floats. I don't think this works. So currently we have either integers or strings. I think it's a language limitation
of that class, and those enums can also have a value. So if you want to use the words draft, published, and archived in your
generics would be pretty cool in PHP. I do agree with that. Would be cool. The way I see generics in PHP is you would have generics, but for people who want to use them, it still needs to be kind of optional, I think one of the reasons why PHP is still so popular today, it's because we embrace progress in the very controlled way, okay? The last thing you want is a totally new language and then leave behind all of these major frameworks like WordPress and Drupal and many others, okay? So we need to go slowly, like progress slowly, just like we are doing today. That's why PHP is so good today. And we have all of these people still with us. Like literally, WordPress is using the latest version of PHP, Drupal, Symfony, Laravel, and
code base, but you want to use the values 1, 2, and 3 in your database. You can do that with a backed enum. That's not all that enums can do. You can add methods to your enum classes. In this case, we'll add a method that gives a user-friendly display.
Exactly what we were discussing. Literally for the front end, you have these nice labels
to each of the enums, and we're using the match statement again, and we're just matching against this, and all of our cases are our enum cases. One of the great things about having first-class enums is you can now use them as type hints. Yeah. So if a method is expecting an enum, you can hint that enum class, and that way PHP will validate that the incoming argument is that enum bar.
I don't think I want to see this section because it's basically about just regular type hints. Just for the sake of the discussion, it's very rare that I have something like this, like union types, or also I literally forgot the name, but this I've never used. Like literally, this thing right here, I never used, never, literally. Union types, it may happen that I use union types, but it's also rare. And this stuff I literally never use ever in my life, that's for sure. It may happen like in packages or at the framework level, but on the web development, like real world bread and butter web development, never happened.
Oh, specific video. Property is of type
oh my
string,
god, that was a big one as well. Property promotion, Jesus Christ. This is another one, literally all the time. Are you guys using property promotion already? Because I am using this stuff all the time.
Is of type date time. Now this is a little repetitive, isn't it? We've got the two properties
so
at the top.
annoying.
We've got the two arguments in the constructor, and then in the constructor we have to set the class level properties. This is a little verbose. This is how we used to have to do it until the PHP gods introduced constructor property promotion. And now you can put the visibility in your constructor signature. You can say public string title, and it will end up as a...
How could we forget about this when we were talking about enums and in match statements? This one was so big as well, man. Like, thank the gods in the world, in everything, in the energies in the planet for bringing this stuff to PHP as well. It was so annoying. Jesus Christ. I'm using this all the time as well. Yeah, property promotion is just so good, man. It was so annoying. Have to literally just type that stuff all the time.
Public property on your class. This is called constructor promotion. I don't love that you end up with an empty constructor body.
Yeah, that's true. That's annoying.
But I do love that it reduces all of that boilerplate. If you want to mark a property as read-only, meaning that it can only be initialized once and then never changed, there's a keyword for that. You can say that a property is read-only.
The bot is asking, what does read-only does? Well, read-only is to avoid, it's kind of making the property immutable. So if I go here to the console PHP, for example, if I have something like a class person, which is a value object, and then you have something like let's see, public function constructor, a read-only name in the read-only age, you can only set this once if the property is public. I can show you an example. Let's go here, type person equals to new person with the name John Doe, age 30. So in the past, you could actually change the name like this. Let's type here peak. You could actually do something like this. So if I remove read only, for example, this will actually work. Here we go, peak and flow on the console right there. But if you make it read only, now this is not allowed, which is pretty cool. Ensures immutability. Immutability is a good thing, okay? It avoids side effects. It avoids problems overall. So you want to avoid that. So this is basically telling me that, my property should be read-only. And even better, you can actually make the entire class read-only now. So instead of having like read-only in two properties, you can make the entire class read-only, which is 1,000 times okay. And if you do this, it's complaining because probably I'm not using PHP, and now this will still not work because it's a read-only property. Exactly. Well, that was a good way. It's funny. Abdabad is saying makes the property unmodifiable. That's a good name for that, by the way. It's a much better name than immutable, okay? In the programming world, for some reason, people call this immutability, which means that the state doesn't change, which effectively a worse name than the one you just said. Unmodifiable. So congratulations for telling me that name. Just in case, saying that immutability should be the default. Well, that's the case. You cannot do something by default. Well, let me rephrase this. It can be the default for us. It can be the default for me or for you, but it cannot just be the default by default. Otherwise, it will break people's projects, you know?
In the constructor as well. If your entire class is read-only, you can mark the class as read-only instead of marking each individual property as read-only. A lot of stuff has changed. If you haven't been paying attention, you might think PHP is dead, but alas, it is not dead. Let's talk about speed. Every time I make a video, people are like, yeah, but PHP is so slow. PHP between like 5.6 and 7 experienced a 400% performance increase, and then I think another 20% between 7 and 8.
Wow, PHP 7 was 4 times faster than PHP 5, which is insane. Now, I do have a real world story to tell you guys. When I was working, it was 12 years ago, I was working on this social media, literally a social media like Facebook, a website. And back then it was developed in PHP 5.6 and PHP 7 just came out. And I remember migrating the entire web server from PHP 5.6 to PHP 7. And we experienced, just by doing that, a 30% improvement on requests. That was insane for us. I don't know how many of you have experiences like this of migrating PHP versions and effectively seeing a performance improvement, but I did saw that. Roberto99 is saying that PHP 7 was a free page speed boost. Oh, dude, it was so good. I still remember that day. Then when we saw like literally our, Grafana shards saying that the response time went like 30% faster just by doing that. It was so good. Amdabat is asking if PHP is faster than Golang. Okay, I'm going to tell you something. When you come to these levels of speed, it doesn't matter if you are faster anymore. It's kind of difficult to explain, but for us, for people like me and you, PHP is as fast as Go. It's even as fast as Rust at the moment. Because for the things we do, which is web development, the nanoseconds or the microseconds do not matter anymore. You know what I mean? Because you are going to spend your time. Well, I'm gonna tell you something. Okay, I'm gonna tell you something, and I may do a segment about when comparing a language to another language. Do not ever talk about being faster or performance, because literally for the things that me and you do, like web development, nanoseconds do not matter anymore, okay? They don't matter. Nanoseconds, microseconds, we don't care about that. I'm going to explain you why. There is a reason behind this. The reason is because when talking about web development, there is this huge portion that just takes all of the time, which is called network. The time that your client takes to go to your server is where 80% of the time will be spent. Then you have 20% left. And typically, those 20% will be spent on database queries or things like this, basically. Database queries, connecting to a new service, for example. It's never about the language, okay? So if you think that performance on languages matter, they don't, at least for web development. Of course, if you are coding microchips with very limited amount of memory or whatever, yeah, sure, go for Rust or C or C++. But for web development, performance is never a reason when choosing language. I don't know if you guys agree with me. If you agree with me, let me know, because this is just my opinion. Oh, thank you, even. Nanoseconds? Oh my God. Yeah, network is the biggest bottleneck, then the database, and then everything else, and finally the language. That's basically you know what I mean?
PHP is not as slow as you remember. So if you need something like 50,000 requests per second, you should probably still not use PHP for that. But look at me, listen to me. When have you personally needed 50,000 requests a second? How many users do you have? So PHP is fast enough. It is fast enough for most of your use cases. And if you need a specialized use case, use a specialized language. But the PHP of yore is not the same as the PHP of today. It is much, much faster. It is much, much better. And it is, see ya.
Oh my God. Let's clap for Adam Francis. This video was awesome. And I really appreciate that he have made an amazing video about the PHP language.